Hi, Mary here to show you how you can customize your clothing with some embroidered words. To make this project, you'll need something to embroider on, an embroidery hoop, embroidery needles, and embroidery floss. I'm going to start by showing you the stitches that I'm going to use in this project. So first I'm going to do the back stitch by bringing my needle up from the back, then sending it to the back one stitch length away. For this whole project, I'm using 3 strands of embroidery floss. Then I'm going to bring my needle back up one stitch length away, and I'm going to send it backward back through the end of my previous stitch. Then I'm going to bring my needle up one stitch length away and send it back through the end of that previous stitch. Okay, so next I'm going to do the stem stitch, which is what I'm going to use for all of my letters. So I'm bringing my needle up from behind, and then I'm going to send it back down one stitch length away. And I'm going to pause when I have a little loop left and pull it to the left. Then I'm going to bring my needle back up in the center of that previous stitch. And now I'm going to go ahead and pull my thread so that loop disappears. And I'm going to pull my thread to the side, send my needle down one stitch length away, and then bring it back up through the end of that previous stitch. And then I can let go of my loop. And so the threads are going to kind of twist around each other. So that's why it's important to pull the thread to the side while you're working on your stitches. So when you get to the last stitch in your stem stitch, you just send that needle back down through the end of your previous stitch and you're all done. Next, you'll want to transfer your design to your shirt and get it into an embroidery hoop so that the fabric is stretched tight but not stretched out. You can transfer your design using a disappearing fabric marker or even a washable marker. Just make sure to test it somewhere where you can't see it to make sure that it washes out completely. You can also use a stabilizer meant for embroidery that will tear or wash away. So I've transferred my design to this water-soluble stabilizer and put that on top of my fabric, and when I'm all done I can tear away the excess and then anything that's left over will wash away. I'm going to start with this heart, doing a back stitch all the way around the outside of my design. Okay, now that I've finished my heart, I'm going to move on to my letters and doing a stem stitch. Now my writing's pretty small, so I'm going to try to make this stem stitch as small as possible, which will help me get around those curves and keep my letters legible. I always try to stitch the same way that I would write my letters with a pen. So here at the O, I'm actually going to end my line of stem stitch and immediately start another in order to make that direction change. If you find yourself stuck, it's okay to pull out a few stitches and try a different way. When I get to the end of the word, I'm just going to send my needle to the back and then tie off a knot, and then I like to weave my thread through the back side of a couple stitches before I trim my thread so that I don't have a tail hanging out. Okay, now that my stitching's complete, we're at the fun part. So I'm going to remove my shirt from the embroidery hoop. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull on my stabilizer carefully and tear away as much of it as I can. And then the little bits that are left in between the letters, that will just wash out.